In the summer of 1963, something remarkable was taking shape on the coastal town of Eastbourne in southern England. The world's first Netball World Cup was about to begin, bringing together 11 nations in a sport that had grown quietly but steadily across the British Commonwealth and beyond. From the 2nd to the 14th of August, teams gathered on the outdoor courts of Chelsea College, ready to test themselves against the best players their countries had to offer. The courts themselves were made of tarmac, hard and unforgiving beneath the feet of the athletes. This was not the polished indoor surface that would come later, but rather a practical outdoor space where the elements would play their part. Sun, wind, and the occasional summer shower would all become factors in these matches, adding an unpredictable quality to the competition. The sound of the ball bouncing on tarmac would become one of the defining memories of this inaugural tournament. England, as the host nation, carried the weight of expectation. The crowds that gathered to watch were curious and enthusiastic, many seeing international netball for the first time. The sport was growing, evolving, and this tournament represented a crucial step in establishing netball as a truly global game. The organizers had chosen a round-robin format, meaning every team would play every other team once. There would be no knockout stages, no sudden death finals. Instead, the champion would be determined by overall performance across all matches, a test of consistency and endurance. From the very first whistle, it became clear that Australia had arrived as a dominant force. Their team moved with precision and purpose, their shooting accurate, their defense relentless. Match after match, they built their campaign without a single defeat. The Australian players seemed to understand something fundamental about the game that gave them an edge, a cohesion that would define their netball for generations to come. New Zealand emerged as their closest challengers, finishing the tournament with only one loss. That single defeat came against Australia, and it came by the narrowest of margins, just one goal separating the two teams. It was a glimpse into a rivalry that would grow to become one of the great stories in international sport. The Trans-Tasman Battle had found its first chapter, written on the tarmac courts of Eastbourne. South Africa made an impressive debut, claiming third place in their first appearance at a world tournament. Their performance suggested depth in the sport beyond the traditional powerhouses, hinting at the global expansion that was still to come. The tournament also featured a standout individual performance when Australia's Lorna Wilson scored 27 goals in a single match, a remarkable display of shooting accuracy and consistency. Beyond the results, this first World Cup achieved something perhaps more important. It helped to standardize the rules of international netball, creating a common framework that teams from different nations could agree upon. The variations that had existed across different countries began to give way to a unified set of guidelines, essential for the sport's growth. The attendance exceeded expectations. Crowds came to watch, drawn by curiosity and national pride, and many left as converts to the sport. The atmosphere around the courts was one of discovery and excitement. This success convinced the organizers and participating nations that the World Cup should become a regular event, scheduled every 4 years like the great traditions of international sport. As the tournament drew to a close, Australia stood as the first world champions, their unbeaten record a statement of intent. New Zealand had shown they could compete at the highest level. South Africa had announced themselves as a rising force. And England, despite finishing fourth, had successfully hosted an event that would be remembered as the beginning of something special. The seeds of a global sporting movement had been planted on those outdoor courts in Eastbourne, and the world of netball would never be quite the same again. 4 years after Eastbourne, the Netball World Cup found a new home on the opposite side of the world. Perth, on Australia's western coast, prepared to welcome the second World Cup from the 10th to the 19th of October in 1967. The tournament would bring together 10 teams, fewer than the previous edition due to several late withdrawals, but what it lacked in numbers it would make up for in significance. This was the first time Australia would host the World Cup, and the nation approached the task with characteristic enthusiasm and organization. The decision to move the tournament indoors marked a deliberate step forward in the evolution of the sport. No longer would players have to contend with the unpredictability of outdoor conditions. Instead, purpose-built indoor courts provided a controlled environment where skill and strategy could truly flourish without interference from sun, wind, or rain. The indoor venues transformed the experience for both players and spectators. The acoustics of enclosed spaces amplified the sounds of the game, the squeak of shoes on polished floors, the sharp calls of players communicating across the court, the collective intake of breath from the crowd at crucial moments. The atmosphere became more intense, more focused, as if the walls themselves contained and concentrated the energy of competition. New Zealand arrived in Perth carrying the memory of their narrow defeat 4 years earlier. That single goal loss to Australia in Eastbourne had stayed with them, a reminder of how close they had come. Now, on Australian soil, they would have another opportunity to test themselves against the defending champions. The rivalry between these two nations was deepening, taking on layers of history and meaning with each encounter. England came to Perth with renewed ambition. Their fourth-place finish in 1963 had been respectable for a host nation finding its feet, but now they aimed higher. The improvement in their squad was evident from the early matches. Their movements more coordinated, their tactical understanding more sophisticated. They would finish this tournament in third place, a clear step forward in their development. The absence of South Africa cast a shadow over the tournament. The apartheid sports boycott had begun to take effect, and South Africa, despite their strong third place showing in 1963, would not be present in Perth. It was a reminder that sport exists within a larger political and social context, and that issues of justice and equality would sometimes intersect with the pursuit of athletic excellence. The netball community would feel this absence for years to come. Wales and Scotland both competed, representing the growing strength of netball across the British Isles. While they finished lower in the standings, their presence demonstrated the sport's reach and the commitment of nations to develop their programs even when facing stronger opposition. Every match they played added to their experience, building foundations for future generations of players. The round-robin format remained unchanged from 1963, with each team playing all others once. This meant that over the 10 days of competition, spectators would see a complete picture of each nation's capabilities. There would be no hiding, no fortunate draws, just the accumulation of results that would reveal the true hierarchy of international netball at that moment. Australia's performances were nothing short of dominant. They won every single match, defending their title without a blemish on their record. Their consistency was remarkable. Their ability to maintain intensity across multiple matches a testament to their fitness and mental strength. One match in particular caught the attention of observers when Australia edged England by a score of 48-44. It was closer than many of their victories, suggesting that the gap between Australia and their challengers might be narrowing, even if only slightly. For New Zealand, finishing as runners-up for the second consecutive tournament was both an achievement and a frustration. They had proven themselves as the second-best team in the world, but that single step to the top remained elusive. Every match against Australia was analyzed, studied, picked apart for lessons that might provide the breakthrough they sought. The impact of hosting the 1967 World Cup rippled across Australia in ways that would shape the sport's future in the nation. Perth itself embraced the tournament with genuine enthusiasm. Local newspapers covered the matches with increasing detail as the competition progressed. Radio broadcasts brought the action to listeners across the country. For many Australians, This was their first real exposure to international netball, and they responded with growing interest and pride in their national team's success. The indoor venues allowed for a level of spectator comfort and engagement that outdoor courts could never match. Families could attend matches knowing they would not be subjected to the harsh Australian sun or unexpected weather. The seating arrangements brought crowds closer to the action, creating an intimacy that enhanced the viewing experience. Children watched with wide eyes as the players moved with precision and grace, and many left those venues dreaming of one day representing their country on the same courts. The quality of play benefited immensely from the indoor conditions. Players could move with confidence, knowing that the surface beneath them would be consistent. The lighting was optimal, eliminating the shadows and glare that outdoor courts sometimes produced. The ball behaved predictably, allowing for more accurate passing and shooting. All of these factors combined to produce netball of a higher technical standard than had been seen at the first World Cup. Australia's dominance, while impressive, also raised questions about the competitive balance of international netball. Winning margins of 20 goals or more became commonplace in their matches against some opponents. The Australian team seemed to operate on a different level, their understanding of space and timing more refined, their execution more clinical. Yet within these lopsided scores lay important lessons for the other nations. Every match against Australia became a learning opportunity, a chance to observe excellence and understand what separated good from great. The tournament also served as a proving ground for coaching philosophies and tactical innovations. Different nations brought different approaches to the game, and the round-robin format meant that these varied styles would clash repeatedly. Some teams favored a more physical defensive approach, others relied on speed and movement. Some built their offense around a dominant shooter, others distributed scoring responsibilities more evenly. This diversity of tactics enriched the tournament and contributed to the broader evolution of netball strategy. For the players themselves, representing their countries at a World Cup remained the pinnacle of their sporting careers. Most were amateurs, balancing their netball commitments with work and family responsibilities. The opportunity to spend 10 days focused entirely on their sport, competing against the world's best, was precious and rare. The bonds formed between teammates during these tournaments often lasted a lifetime. Connections forged through shared effort and common purpose. The success of the Perth tournament strengthened the case for continuing the World Cup as a quadrennial event. The International Federation of Netball Associations could see that the competition was gaining momentum, attracting attention, and raising standards. The next tournament was already being planned, and there was a sense that each World Cup would build upon the achievements of its predecessors, gradually elevating netball's profile on the global sporting stage. As the final matches concluded and Australia celebrated their second consecutive title, New Zealand's players could be seen in quiet conversation, already thinking ahead to the next opportunity. England's bronze medal represented progress, a tangible reward for their development efforts. The smaller nations packed their bags with renewed determination, knowing that while the gap to the top remained significant, it was not insurmountable. Perth had proven itself an excellent host, and the tournament had demonstrated that moving indoors was the right decision for the sport's future. The Australian public had responded with enthusiasm that exceeded expectations, and participation rates in netball across the country would surge in the months and years that followed. Young girls who had watched the World Cup would join clubs, driven by dreams of one day wearing the green and gold. The legacy of the 1967 tournament would extend far beyond the results recorded in the history books. The summer of 1971 brought the Netball World Cup to Wales, marking the first time the tournament would be held in a part of the United Kingdom outside of England. From the 17th to the 24th of August, Cardiff prepared to showcase not only its capability as a host city but also its deep passion for sport and competition. Wales had long punched above its weight in international rugby, and now the nation would bring that same enthusiasm and organizational skill to netball. Cardiff Arms Park, a name that resonated through the rugby world, became one of the central venues for the tournament. The surrounding facilities in Cardiff were also pressed into service, creating a network of courts that would accommodate the 11 competing nations. The city itself seemed to embrace the event, with Welsh flags flying alongside those of the visiting countries, creating a colorful and welcoming atmosphere for the international visitors. The weather in Cardiff during August can be unpredictable, shifting from sunshine to rain with little warning. The organizers had prepared for this, ensuring that indoor alternatives were available when needed. Yet there was something distinctly Welsh about the tournament's character, a warmth of welcome that transcended the occasional gray sky. The crowds that gathered were knowledgeable and appreciative, ready to applaud good play regardless of which nation produced it. Australia arrived in Cardiff as two-time defending champions, their confidence built on 8 years of international dominance. They had not lost a match at a World Cup, a remarkable run that spoke to the depth and quality of their netball program. The Australian team traveled with the quiet assurance of athletes who knew they were the standard against which all others would be measured. Their preparation had been meticulous, their focus absolute. New Zealand came to Wales with a familiar mixture of hope and determination. Twice they had finished as runners-up, twice they had watched Australia claim the title. The rivalry between these two nations had grown more intense with each tournament, fed by geographic proximity and cultural similarities that made every encounter feel deeply personal. In training sessions before the tournament began, the New Zealand players moved with a purposefulness that suggested they believed their time might be coming. England approached this World Cup with the steady confidence of a team that had shown improvement in Perth. Their third-place finish in 1967 had validated their development pathway, and now they aimed to at least maintain that position, if not challenge for higher honors. The English squad included a blend of experienced campaigners who remembered Eastbourne in 1963 and younger players for whom this was their first taste of World Cup competition. Jamaica's presence in Cardiff hinted at the Caribbean's growing involvement in netball. Though they would finish in fourth place, their very participation signaled that the sport was expanding beyond its traditional Commonwealth heartlands. The Jamaican style brought a different energy to the tournament, a fluidity and athleticism that caught the eye even in defeat. They represented a future where netball would truly span the globe. The round-robin format, now in its third World Cup, had become familiar and accepted. Teams knew they would face every opponent once, that there would be no second chances against teams that defeated them, but also that a single loss need not be fatal to championship hopes. The format demanded consistency above all else, the ability to prepare for and perform in match after match over the course of a week. From the opening matches, Australia's dominance was evident. They won by margins that often exceeded 20 goals, their combination play and shooting accuracy overwhelming opponents who simply could not match their level. Yet within these one-sided contests, there were moments of beauty and skill from the other teams, passages of play that showed the sport's technical demands and tactical complexity. The Trans-Tasman rivalry provided the tournament's main narrative tension. When Australia and New Zealand met on the court, the atmosphere shifted, became more electric. These matches were played with an intensity that reflected years of competition and mutual respect. Australia won, as they had in previous tournaments, but New Zealand pushed them hard, refusing to concede easy goals, fighting for every possession. The summer of 1971 brought the Netball World Cup to Wales, marking the first time the tournament would be held in a part of the United Kingdom outside of England. From the 17th to the 24th of August, Cardiff prepared to showcase not only its capability as a host city but also its deep passion for sport and competition. Wales had long punched above its weight in international rugby, and now the nation would bring that same enthusiasm and organizational skill to netball. Cardiff Arms Park, a name that resonated through the rugby world, became one of the central venues for the tournament. The surrounding facilities in Cardiff were also pressed into service, creating a network of courts that would accommodate the 11 competing nations. The city itself seemed to embrace the event, with Welsh flags flying alongside those of the visiting countries, creating a colorful and welcoming atmosphere for the international visitors. The weather in Cardiff during August can be unpredictable, shifting from sunshine to rain with little warning. The organizers had prepared for this, ensuring that indoor alternatives were available when needed. Yet there was something distinctly Welsh about the tournament's character, a warmth of welcome that transcended the occasional gray sky. The crowds that gathered were knowledgeable and appreciative, ready to applaud good play regardless of which nation produced it. Australia arrived in Cardiff as two-time defending champions, their confidence built on 8 years of international dominance. They had not lost a match at a World Cup, a remarkable run that spoke to the depth and quality of their netball program. The Australian team traveled with the quiet assurance of athletes who knew they were the standard against which all others would be measured. Their preparation had been meticulous, their focus absolute. New Zealand came to Wales with a familiar mixture of hope and determination. Twice they had finished as runners-up, twice they had watched Australia claim the title. The rivalry between these two nations had grown more intense with each tournament, fed by geographic proximity and cultural similarities that made every encounter feel deeply personal. In training sessions before the tournament began, the New Zealand players moved with a purposefulness that suggested they believed their time might be coming. England approached this World Cup with the steady confidence of a team that had shown improvement in Perth. Their third-place finish in 1967 had validated their development pathway, and now they aimed to at least maintain that position, if not challenge for higher honors. The English squad included a blend of experienced campaigners who remembered Eastbourne in 1963 and younger players for whom this was their first taste of World Cup competition. Jamaica's presence in Cardiff hinted at the Caribbean's growing involvement in netball. Though they would finish in fourth place, their very participation signaled that the sport was expanding beyond its traditional Commonwealth heartlands. The Jamaican style brought a different energy to the tournament, a fluidity and athleticism that caught the eye even in defeat. They represented a future where netball would truly span the globe. The round-robin format, now in its third World Cup, had become familiar and accepted. Teams knew they would face every opponent once, that there would be no second chances against teams that defeated them, but also that a single loss need not be fatal to championship hopes. The format demanded consistency above all else, the ability to prepare for and perform in match after match over the course of a week. From the opening matches, Australia's dominance was evident. They won by margins that often exceeded 20 goals, their combination play and shooting accuracy overwhelming opponents who simply could not match their level. Yet within these one-sided contests, there were moments of beauty and skill from the other teams, passages of play that showed the sport's technical demands and tactical complexity. The Trans-Tasman rivalry provided the tournament's main narrative tension. When Australia and New Zealand met on the court, the atmosphere shifted, became more electric. These matches were played with an intensity that reflected years of competition and mutual respect. Australia won, as they had in previous tournaments, but New Zealand pushed them hard, refusing to concede easy goals, fighting for every possession. The fourth World Cup brought netball to Auckland, New Zealand, for the first time. From the 29th of August through the 6th of September in 1975, the tournament would unfold in a nation where netball held a special place in the sporting culture. New Zealand had finished second 3 times, had come so close to toppling Australia, and now they would compete before their home crowds with all the pressure and possibility that such circumstances bring. The decision to host the tournament indoors proved to be transformative for the New Zealand experience. Purpose-built venues in Auckland provided excellent sightlines and acoustics, creating an atmosphere that was both intense and intimate. The crowds that filled these spaces were knowledgeable and passionate, understanding the nuances of the game, appreciating skill and strategy alongside the drama of close contests. For visiting teams, playing before these crowds would be both challenging and exhilarating. 11 nations assembled in Auckland, the same number that had competed in Cardiff 4 years earlier. The familiarity of seeing the same core group of countries spoke to netball's established community, while also highlighting the sports room for geographic expansion. Each team brought its own style, its own strengths, and its own hopes for the tournament. The atmosphere in the days before the first match was one of anticipation and quiet preparation. Australia arrived in Auckland as 3-time defending champions, their record at World Cups still unblemished. Yet there was a sense that this tournament might be different. Playing in New Zealand, before crowds that would loudly support their rivals, presented a psychological challenge unlike any Australia had previously faced at a World Cup. The Australian players knew they could not rely solely on their skill and experience. They would need mental fortitude to withstand the pressure of hostile territory. The tournament began, and the round-robin format once again meant that every team would face every other team. The early matches allowed teams to find their rhythm, to adjust to the local conditions, to gauge the form of their rivals. For New Zealand, playing at home brought both advantages and pressures. The support of the crowd was energizing, but the weight of national expectation was considerable. Every match felt magnified in importance. As the competition unfolded, a surprising pattern emerged. England was playing with a confidence and cohesion that surpassed their previous performances. Their movement was sharper, their decision-making more assured, their shooting more reliable. When the tournament concluded, England would finish in second place, breaking New Zealand's silver medal streak and achieving their best World Cup result to date. It was a breakthrough that validated years of development work and strategic planning within English netball. For New Zealand, finishing third was disappointing given the home advantage and their history of runner-up finishes. Yet the bronze medal on home soil came with important lessons about handling pressure and maintaining performance under the weight of expectation. The New Zealand players and coaches would analyze what had happened, seeking to understand how to convert home support into positive energy rather than paralyzing pressure. Australia's 4th consecutive title extended their remarkable run of dominance. In a key match against England, Australia prevailed 44 goals to 39, a margin that reflected genuine competition while still demonstrating Australian superiority. The Australian team had shown its adaptability, winning in New Zealand despite the challenging atmosphere, proving that their success was not dependent on friendly crowds or familiar surroundings. Trinidad and Tobago entered the top 5 for the first time in tournament history, a significant achievement that signaled the Caribbean's growing strength in netball. The Caribbean teams brought an approach to the game that was distinctive, combining athleticism with creativity in ways that sometimes surprised their more established opponents. Their rise suggested that the traditional hierarchy of international netball might be subject to change in the years ahead. The venues in Auckland provided an excellent stage for the sport. The indoor settings protected players and spectators from New Zealand's sometimes unpredictable spring weather, ensuring consistent playing conditions throughout the tournament. The facilities were modern and well-maintained, reflecting New Zealand's commitment to providing a first-class tournament experience. The acoustics meant that the roar of the crowd during crucial moments became part of the match itself, an extra element that players had to manage and channel. The 1979 Netball World Cup marked a significant departure from tradition, taking the tournament beyond Europe and Oceania for the first time in its history. Trinidad and Tobago, twin islands in the southern Caribbean, would host the competition from the 19th to the 30th of November. The decision to bring the World Cup to the Caribbean represented a bold statement about netball's global aspirations and its commitment to developing the sport in new regions. The Caribbean setting brought challenges that previous tournaments had not encountered. The climate in Trinidad during November is warm and humid, conditions quite different from the temperate environments of previous host nations. Players who had trained in cooler climates would need to adjust their preparation and pacing, learning to manage their energy across matches played in heat that could sap stamina and test resolve. The humidity affected everything from how the ball moved through the air to how quickly players fatigued. Only 9 teams would compete in Trinidad, the smallest field since the inaugural tournament in 1963. Several nations had withdrawn for various reasons, leaving a more compact competition but one that still represented a wide geographic spread. Those teams that did make the journey to the Caribbean knew they were part of something historic, the first World Cup in this region and possibly a turning point for the sport's development beyond its traditional strongholds. Trinidad and Tobago as hosts carried the hopes and dreams of Caribbean netball. The sport was growing rapidly in the region, with natural athleticism and creativity finding expression through the game's demands for speed, coordination, and tactical intelligence. The home team trained with fierce determination, knowing that while they might not be favorites to win the tournament, they had an opportunity to make their mark on the world stage in front of their own people. The tournament venues reflected the Caribbean character. While facilities might not have matched the purpose-built arenas of Auckland or Perth, they possessed an energy and atmosphere that was distinctly local. Crowds gathered not just to watch but to celebrate, bringing music and color and vocal support that created an environment unlike any previous World Cup. The sound of steel pan drums drifted across tournament grounds, a reminder that this was netball in a new cultural context. Australia arrived in Trinidad as 4-time defending champions, seeking to extend a dominance that had never been seriously threatened at a World Cup. Yet the combination of unfamiliar conditions, smaller squad depth, and the energy of Caribbean crowds meant this tournament would test them in new ways. The Australian team approached their matches with characteristic professionalism, but even they could not entirely predict how the next 2 weeks would unfold. New Zealand came to Trinidad with renewed purpose. After their disappointing third-place finish in Auckland, they had regrouped and refocused. The lessons of competing under pressure had been absorbed, and the team arrived in the Caribbean determined to reclaim their position as Australia's primary challenger. The Trans-Tasman rivalry, now spanning 16 years and 4 tournaments, had deepened into something approaching obsession for both nations. The round-robin format, familiar from previous tournaments, would determine the final standings. Every match mattered, every goal could prove significant. In the heat and humidity of Trinidad, the physical demands of playing multiple matches over 10 days would test fitness and mental resilience in equal measure. Teams would need to manage their energy carefully, knowing that a poor performance in one match could undo the work of several good results. England arrived in Trinidad as the defending silver medalists from Auckland, eager to build on that success. Their program had shown steady improvement across successive tournaments, and they believed they could compete with anyone on their day. The Caribbean conditions were as new to them as to everyone else, creating a level playing field in terms of adaptation and adjustment. Trinidad and Tobago, as hosts, entered the tournament with the advantages of familiarity and crowd support. They knew the venues, understood the climate, and could count on passionate backing from spectators. These factors would prove more significant than anyone initially anticipated, as the home team prepared to write one of the most remarkable chapters in World Cup history. As the 1979 tournament in Trinidad progressed through its middle days, something unusual began to emerge in the pattern of results. Australia was winning matches as expected, but they were also encountering resistance that seemed stronger than in previous tournaments. New Zealand was performing well, their form suggesting they were genuine contenders. And remarkably, Trinidad and Tobago were not just competing but genuinely threatening the established order, their home advantage translating into results that exceeded all predictions. The heat and humidity played a role that became increasingly evident. Teams that had prepared in cooler climates found the conditions draining, particularly in the later stages of matches when fatigue accumulated. The local knowledge of the Trinidad and Tobago team proved valuable, their bodies accustomed to training and competing in such weather, their pacing and hydration strategies refined through experience that visiting teams simply could not match in a short tournament. Crucial matches began to produce unexpected results. Australia and New Zealand played to a draw, a result that would have seemed unlikely in previous tournaments but now reflected the genuine competitiveness between these eternal rivals. Trinidad and Tobago secured results against teams that, on paper, should have defeated them comfortably. The round-robin table began to show a bunching at the top that suggested the final standings might be closer than anyone had anticipated. As the tournament entered its final days, the mathematics of the round-robin format began to create a scenario that seemed almost impossible. 3 teams, Australia, New Zealand, and Trinidad and Tobago, were tracking toward an identical number of competition points. The prospect of a 3-way tie for first place seemed too unlikely to take seriously, yet with each passing match, it became more plausible, then probable, then inevitable. When the final matches concluded, the unthinkable had occurred. Australia, New Zealand, and Trinidad and Tobago had finished in a perfect 3-way tie. The round-robin format, which had worked smoothly in previous tournaments to produce a clear winner, now faced its greatest test. With no tie-breaking procedures established for such a scenario and no final system in place, the tournament organizers faced a genuine crisis. How could 3 teams share a world title? The discussions that followed were intense and prolonged. Representatives from the 3 nations, tournament officials, and members of the International Federation of Netball Associations all weighed in on how to resolve the situation. Some argued for examining goal difference or head-to-head results, but these approaches failed to clearly separate the 3 teams. Others suggested a playoff, but the logistics of organizing additional matches with teams preparing to travel home made this impractical. In the end, the decision was made to declare all 3 nations as co-champions. It was unprecedented in World Cup history, a solution that satisfied no one completely but seemed the fairest response to an extraordinary situation. Australia, New Zealand, and Trinidad and Tobago would all be recorded as 1979 World Cup winners, sharing a title that each had legitimate claim to based on their tournament performances. For Trinidad and Tobago, this result represented the pinnacle of their netball history. Their only World Cup podium finish came as co-champions on home soil, a fairy tale outcome that seemed scripted for maximum drama. The celebrations that followed in Trinidad were jubilant and prolonged, a nation reveling in an achievement that had seemed impossible when the tournament began. The local crowds had willed their team to greatness, and the players had responded with performances that matched their nation's passion. Australia's share of the title extended their winning streak, technically, but the inability to claim the championship outright felt like a step backward. Their dominance had been challenged in ways it had not been before, and the co-championship highlighted that other nations were closing the gap. The Australian program would use this experience as motivation, determined to reassert clear supremacy at future tournaments. New Zealand's share of the title was their first World Cup victory, albeit shared. After 3 runner-up finishes, they had finally reached the summit, even if they had to share the view. The New Zealand team and their supporters took genuine satisfaction from this result, seeing it as validation of their development and proof that they could match Australia when conditions and form aligned. England finished fourth, just outside the unprecedented three-way tie, while Jamaica secured fifth place. Both teams had competed honorably, and while they missed the podium, they contributed to a tournament that would be remembered as one of the most dramatic and significant in netball history. The conversations that followed this tournament focused intensely on one question: should the World Cup introduce a final system to ensure a clear champion? 4 years after the chaos and drama of Trinidad, the Netball World Cup found a new frontier in Singapore. From the 7th to the 14th of August in 1983, the tournament would be hosted in Asia for the first time, marking another significant step in netball's geographic expansion. Singapore represented modernity and organization, a city-state that had rapidly developed into a regional hub and now welcomed the opportunity to showcase international sport. The matches would be played indoors at the National Stadium, a facility that offered excellent conditions and modern amenities. The venue's capacity and infrastructure reflected Singapore's ambitions to be recognized as a serious player in international sports hosting. The climate outside was tropical and humid, but inside the stadium, temperature control and proper lighting created an environment where netball could be played at the highest level without environmental interference. 10 teams assembled in Singapore, one more than had competed in Trinidad. The return to double digits felt like a stabilization after the smaller field of 1979, suggesting that nations were committed to regular World Cup participation despite the logistical and financial challenges of traveling to tournaments held across the globe. Each team arrived with memories of the previous championship's unprecedented three-way tie and questions about how this tournament would unfold. Australia came to Singapore with a point to prove. The shared title from Trinidad had left them unsatisfied, and they were determined to reclaim the championship outright. Their preparation had been meticulous, their focus sharpened by the knowledge that their dominance had been questioned. The Australian team that took the court in Singapore played with a controlled intensity that suggested they would not be denied. New Zealand arrived as co-defending champions, but they understood that their shared title carried less weight than an outright victory would have. The Trans-Tasman rivalry with Australia had grown even more intense following the Trinidad result, both nations eager to establish clear superiority. For New Zealand, every match was important, but the encounter with Australia would be the one that truly mattered in terms of psychological advantage. Jamaica's participation marked their continued growth as a netball nation. They would finish fifth in Singapore, but their presence and competitiveness demonstrated that Caribbean netball had substance beyond Trinidad and Tobago's home tournament heroics. Jamaica was building a program with long-term ambitions, investing in player development and coaching education, laying foundations for future success. England came to Singapore having slipped to fourth place in Trinidad, eager to return to the podium. The English program remained strong, their domestic competitions producing skilled players, but translating that talent into World Cup success had proven challenging. They would finish fourth again in Singapore, a result that reflected both their competence and the difficulty of breaking into the medal positions when Australia and New Zealand dominated the top two spots. The tournament began, and from the early matches, Australia's intent was clear. They played with a precision and power that overwhelmed opponents, often winning by substantial margins. One match saw Australia defeat England 59 goals to 29, a scoreline that demonstrated the gulf that could still exist between the world's best team and other strong nations. These performances sent a message. Australia was back to assert unambiguous dominance. The round-robin format remained in place, but discussions about introducing playoffs had intensified following the Trinidad tournament's tie. The question was not whether a final system should be implemented, but when and in what form. Many within the netball community believed that a championship should be decided by a climactic final match, not by accumulated points across a round robin. The calls for change were growing louder and more insistent. Singapore itself embraced the tournament with characteristic efficiency. The organization was flawless, from transportation to accommodation to match scheduling. Local volunteers contributed their time and energy, ensuring that players and officials had everything they needed. The tournament demonstrated that Asia could successfully host major international sporting events, a message that would encourage future bids from the region. Australia's unbeaten run through the tournament culminated in an outright championship, their 5th World Cup title. New Zealand finished second once again, extending their pattern of being perpetually close but not quite capable of toppling their neighbors. Jamaica's bronze medal was their first podium finish, a breakthrough that signaled their arrival as a genuine force in international netball and hinted at even greater achievements to come. The summer of 1987 brought the Netball World Cup back to the British Isles, with Scotland assuming hosting duties for the tournament that would run from the 31st of July through the 7th of August. Glasgow, Scotland's largest city and a place steeped in sporting tradition, prepared to welcome 12 teams, the largest field in World Cup history to that point. The expansion reflected netball's growing reach and the increasing number of nations willing to invest in competitive international programs. Meadowbank Sports Centre in Edinburgh would serve as the primary venue, a facility known for its excellent sporting infrastructure. The choice to host in Scotland, rather than returning to England or Wales, demonstrated the UK's commitment to spreading major sporting events across its constituent nations. Scottish crowds, passionate about sport in general, approached the netball tournament with genuine interest and enthusiasm, ready to support their own team while appreciating the skill on display from visiting nations. The expansion to 12 teams meant more matches, more complexity in scheduling, and a richer tapestry of international competition. Teams from different continents would face each other, styles and approaches would clash, and the diversity of netball's global family would be on full display. The round-robin format, while still in place, now required careful organization to ensure all matches could be completed within the tournament's timeline. European crowds embraced the tournament in ways that suggested the sport was gaining genuine traction across the continent. Families attended matches together, schools organized group outings to watch, and local media provided extensive coverage. The atmosphere in and around the venues felt celebratory and engaged, different perhaps from the intensity of New Zealand or Australian crowds, but genuine in its appreciation for the sport. Australia arrived in Glasgow as 5-time champions, their dominance seemingly unshakable. They had responded to the shared title in Trinidad by reasserting their superiority in Singapore, and now they sought to extend their winning streak. The Australian team traveled with confidence built on decades of success, but also with awareness that their rivals, particularly New Zealand, were constantly improving and searching for any weakness to exploit. New Zealand had finished second in 5 of the 6 previous tournaments, including their shared title in Trinidad. This pattern of near misses had become both a source of pride and frustration. Pride because it confirmed their status as a netball powerhouse. Frustration because the final step to outright championship glory remained elusive. The New Zealand players arrived in Glasgow with a quiet determination that suggested they believed this might finally be their moment. England, competing on home soil in the broader sense, carried hopes of returning to the podium for the first time since 1975. Their recent 4th-place finishes, while respectable, felt like underachievement for a nation with such a rich netball tradition. The English team trained with focus and purpose, knowing that a home tournament presented both opportunity and pressure in equal measure. The atmosphere in the days before the tournament began was one of anticipation mixed with speculation. Would Australia extend their dominance, or would someone finally break through? Could New Zealand convert their perennial near misses into actual victory? Would the expanded field produce surprises from unexpected quarters? These questions animated conversations among players, coaches, and fans as the opening matches approached. The tournament schedule reflected the complexity of accommodating 12 teams in a round-robin format. Matches would be played across multiple courts, sometimes simultaneously, requiring spectators to choose which games to watch and creating a festival atmosphere where netball was happening everywhere you looked. The logistics were challenging, but the variety and volume of competition created energy that permeated the entire event. Scottish weather in early August can be unpredictable, with sunshine giving way to clouds and rain without warning. The indoor venue protected the competition from these vagaries, ensuring consistent playing conditions regardless of what was happening outside. The temperature-controlled environment meant players could focus entirely on their performance without environmental distractions, creating optimal conditions for high-quality netball. As the tournament began and teams started their campaigns, the early results followed familiar patterns. Australia won their opening matches convincingly. New Zealand also started strongly, and the traditional powers asserted themselves. But something in the air suggested that this tournament might be different, that the narrative arc of World Cup history might be about to take an unexpected turn. The middle days of the 1987 tournament in Glasgow saw the competition intensify as teams moved deeper into their schedules. Each match carried weight, each result affecting the overall standings, and the round-robin format meant that there was no hiding from strong opponents. Teams faced each other knowing that this single encounter would determine their relative positions, with no second chances or redemption through knockout rounds. The match that would define the tournament came when Australia and New Zealand met on the court. This was not just another game in their long rivalry. The context and stakes made it something more significant. Both teams had won their other matches convincingly, meaning this encounter would likely determine the championship. The atmosphere before the match was electric, spectators sensing they might be about to witness something historic. From the opening whistle, the intensity was extraordinary. Both teams played with controlled aggression, every possession contested, every goal celebrated. The defense from both sides was suffocating at times, forcing turnovers and rushed shots. The shooting, when opportunities arose, showed remarkable composure under pressure. This was netball at its absolute highest level, two nations that knew each other intimately battling for supremacy. New Zealand built a lead through the middle quarters, their movement sharp and their decision-making precise. Australia fought back as they always did, their experience and resilience never allowing the margin to become insurmountable. The match swung back and forth, momentum shifting with each quarter, neither team able to deliver a knockout blow. The crowd watched in rapt attention, understanding they were witnessing something special. As the final quarter unfolded, New Zealand held a narrow advantage. The Australian pressure intensified, their players throwing everything into the pursuit of goals that would allow them to recover. But New Zealand's defense stood firm, making crucial intercepts at vital moments, disrupting the Australian rhythm just enough to prevent a comeback. When the final whistle sounded, New Zealand had won 45 goals to 43, a two-goal margin that felt simultaneously comfortable and precarious. The significance of this result reverberated through the tournament immediately. New Zealand had defeated Australia in a World Cup match, breaking a streak of dominance that stretched back to the tournament's inception in 1963. It was not just a win, it was a statement that the balance of power in international netball had shifted, or at least equalized. The New Zealand players celebrated with a mixture of joy and relief, knowing they had achieved something their predecessors had pursued for 24 years. For the remainder of the tournament, New Zealand maintained their form, winning their other matches and securing the points necessary to claim the title. When the final standings were calculated, New Zealand stood at the top, World Cup champions for the first time outright. Australia finished second, a position they were unaccustomed to occupying. England claimed bronze, returning to the podium on home soil and achieving a result their supporters celebrated with genuine satisfaction. Australia's second-place finish marked the first time in World Cup history that they had not won the championship. While they could point to their shared title in Trinidad, this was different. New Zealand had beaten them head-to-head in the decisive match and claimed the crown outright. The Australian netball community absorbed this result with a mixture of disappointment and respect, recognizing that New Zealand had earned their victory fairly and thoroughly. The Trans-Tasman rivalry, already intense, reached new heights following Glasgow. Australia now had motivation to reclaim their position, while New Zealand had proven they could win when it mattered most. The competitive dynamic between these nations, which had driven much of netball's development over the previous 2 decades, entered a new phase where neither could claim automatic superiority. The tournament's expansion to 12 teams had proven successful, creating more matches and more opportunities for nations to compete at the highest level. The round-robin format had worked well despite the larger field, producing a clear and deserved champion. Yet the calls for a final system continued to grow, driven by a belief that the sports showcase event should culminate in a climactic championship match. As the teams departed Glasgow, the netball world had changed. New Zealand's victory had broken the pattern of Australian dominance, opening new possibilities for the sport's competitive future. The 1987 World Cup would be remembered not just for New Zealand's breakthrough but for what it represented about netball's evolution. The sport had matured to the point where multiple nations could legitimately compete for the title, and the era of single-nation dominance, at least in its most absolute form, had come to an end. The 1991 Netball World Cup brought the tournament back to Australia for the 3rd time, with Sydney hosting from the 19th to the 28th of July. The Sydney Entertainment Centre would serve as the main venue, a modern facility capable of accommodating large crowds and providing the infrastructure needed for a major international sporting event. 12 teams would compete, but this tournament would be different from all that had come before in one crucial respect. For the first time, the World Cup would feature semi-finals and a grand final. The introduction of knockout rounds represented a fundamental shift in how the championship would be decided. After years of debate following the 3-way tie in Trinidad and increasing pressure for a more dramatic conclusion to the tournament, the International Federation of Netball Associations had finally agreed to implement a final system. Teams would still compete in a preliminary round-robin phase, but the top teams from that phase would then advance to semi-finals, with the winners meeting in a grand final to determine the champion. This format change created new dynamics and pressures. Teams could no longer simply accumulate points across the entire tournament. They now needed to peak at the right time, to bring their best form to the knockout matches when there would be no second chances. The preliminary round-robin became, in effect, a qualification phase, with the real championship to be decided in the finals. It was a more complex system, but one that promised to deliver the dramatic climax that the sports showcase event deserved. Australia approached this tournament with particular motivation. New Zealand's victory in Glasgow had ended their dominance, and the Australians had spent the 4 years since that defeat working to reclaim their position at the top of international netball. Playing at home in Sydney provided both advantage and pressure. The partisan crowds expected to lift the team while also creating expectations that could feel crushing if not met. New Zealand came to Sydney as defending champions, confident in their ability to compete with anyone. The victory in Glasgow had confirmed what they had long believed, that they were Australia's equal when both teams were at their best. The challenge now was to prove that Glasgow was not a one-time achievement but rather the beginning of a new era where New Zealand could consistently challenge for titles. England arrived with realistic ambitions of reaching the semi-finals and possibly the final. Their bronze medal in Glasgow had been encouraging, and the program continued to develop. The new finals format actually suited England, as it meant that accumulating points in the preliminary rounds was not the only path to glory. Winning the right matches at the right time could potentially lead to an unexpected championship. Jamaica's presence reflected the Caribbean nation's growing commitment to netball. Their program had shown steady improvement over successive tournaments, and they now had aspirations beyond simply participating. The new finals format meant that if they could navigate the preliminary rounds successfully, they might find themselves in contention for medals in ways that the pure round-robin format had made more difficult. The Sydney Entertainment Centre created an atmosphere that was both intimate and grand. The venue's acoustics amplified crowd noise, making Australian supporters an additional factor that visiting teams had to manage. The facilities were excellent, the sightlines clear, and the lighting optimal for both players and television cameras. This last point was significant, as television coverage of the tournament would reach record audiences in Australia and increasingly in other participating nations. The preliminary round-robin phase unfolded over the first several days of the tournament, teams jockeying for position and trying to secure favorable matchups for the semi-finals. Every match carried dual significance. The immediate result mattered, but teams also had to consider how their performance and any injuries or fatigue might affect them in the knockout rounds to come. Australia progressed through their preliminary matches with the kind of controlled dominance that had characterized their best performances. They were clearly operating with a plan, managing their players' minutes, testing different combinations, building toward the finals while ensuring they secured a favorable semi-final position. The home crowd responded to each victory with enthusiasm that grew as the knockout rounds approached. New Zealand also advanced through the preliminary phase successfully, setting up the possibility of another Australia versus New Zealand encounter in the final. The prospect of the Trans-Tasman rivals meeting in the first-ever World Cup Grand Final added an extra layer of anticipation to the tournament. It was the matchup that everyone wanted to see, the clash that would define the new era of World Cup netball. The semi-finals of the 1991 World Cup brought the new format into sharp focus. These were do-or-die matches, where everything a team had worked toward could be ended in a single hour of netball. The pressure was different from anything the players had experienced in previous tournaments, where a loss might damage medal prospects but wouldn't immediately eliminate championship hopes. Now, two teams would advance to the grand final, and two would be left to contest the bronze medal match. Australia and New Zealand both navigated their semi-finals successfully, though not without moments of genuine tension. The path to victory required them to play with precision and maintain composure under circumstances where nerves could easily overwhelm skill. Both teams managed this challenge, their experience and quality showing when it mattered most. The stage was set for the match that the netball world had anticipated: Australia versus New Zealand in the first World Cup Grand Final. The atmosphere in the Sydney Entertainment Centre for the Grand Final was electric in ways that previous World Cup matches had never quite achieved. The knockout format had created a sense of occasion that the round-robin system, for all its merits, could not replicate. This was winner-take-all, sudden death, a single match to determine the world champion. The crowd, overwhelmingly Australian in composition and support, created a wall of noise that seemed to physically press down on the court. From the opening whistle, the intensity was extraordinary. Both teams understood the stakes, and both brought their absolute best. Australia, playing at home before a crowd that willed them to victory, seemed to draw extra energy from their surroundings. New Zealand, the defending champions, relied on their experience and the confidence that came from knowing they had beaten Australia before when it mattered. The match swung back and forth across the 4 quarters, neither team able to establish a decisive advantage. Australia would push ahead, only for New Zealand to claw back level. The shooting from both sides showed remarkable composure given the pressure. The defensive work was intense and unrelenting. These were 2 teams that knew each other intimately, that had studied each other for years, and that understood the smallest margins could determine the outcome. As the final quarter progressed, Australia began to edge ahead. Their superior depth, their home advantage, and perhaps the weight of expectation on New Zealand to defend their title, all combined to give Australia crucial momentum. The crowd sensed victory approaching and lifted their volume even higher, creating an atmosphere that bordered on overwhelming. New Zealand fought with everything they had, but they could not quite match Australia's final surge. When the final whistle sounded, Australia had won 53 goals to 51. 2 goals separated the teams, a margin that accurately reflected how close the match had been. Australia celebrated with the kind of joy that comes from reclaiming something that was lost, from answering doubters and proving that their dominance had been only temporarily interrupted. For New Zealand, the defeat was crushing, made more difficult by how close they had come. The introduction of the grand final format had proven itself spectacularly. The match had delivered drama, tension, and a climactic finish that a round-robin system could never quite provide. Television audiences in Australia had reached record levels, with millions watching the final moments as their team secured the championship. The success of this new format would ensure its continuation at future tournaments. England finished 4th in their semi-final, while Jamaica placed 5th overall. Both teams had competed well, but the new format had exposed the gap between the very top teams and the rest. The final system favored the best teams, giving them an opportunity to prove their superiority in decisive matches rather than relying on accumulated points across many games. The tournament's success in Sydney went beyond the on-court action. The organization had been exemplary, the venues excellent, and the atmosphere consistently engaging. Australia had demonstrated its capability to host major international sporting events, setting standards that future World Cup hosts would need to meet or exceed. The modern era of elite netball had firmly established itself in Sydney. The finals format had transformed the World Cup from extended round-robin competition into a climactic sporting event with clear narrative structure and dramatic tension. The sport had grown in sophistication, the level of play had risen, and the global interest in netball was expanding beyond its traditional Commonwealth heartlands. The 1991 World Cup marked not just Australia's return to supremacy, but the beginning of a new chapter in how the sport would be contested and celebrated at the international level. The 1995 Netball World Cup returned to London, England, bringing the tournament back to the city where it had all begun 32 years earlier, though now to modern indoor venues rather than the outdoor tarmac courts of Eastbourne. Australia defended their title successfully, demonstrating that their victory in Sydney had not been simply a product of home advantage but rather a genuine reclamation of their position at the summit of international netball. New Zealand took silver, extending the pattern of these 2 nations dominating the top positions. England, competing on home soil, claimed bronze in front of strong crowds that had turned out to support their team and celebrate the sport. The London tournament showcased netball to UK audiences with unprecedented coverage and promotion. The sport was growing in participation across England, with schools and clubs reporting increased interest. The World Cup provided a focal point for this growth, giving young players role models to emulate and demonstrating the highest level of achievement the sport could offer. The venues were filled with enthusiastic spectators, creating an atmosphere that validated the organizers' efforts and the investment made in promoting the event. 4 years later, in 1999, the World Cup moved to Christchurch, New Zealand, where Australia claimed their 8th title overall. The tournament marked significant progress in global broadcasting, with improved television coverage reaching audiences across multiple continents. The technical quality of the broadcasts had advanced considerably, with multiple camera angles, slow-motion replays, and expert commentary helping viewers understand the nuances of play. The 1999 tournament brought a surprise in the form of South Africa reaching their first World Cup final. After years of exclusion due to the apartheid boycott, South Africa had returned to international netball and had used the intervening years to build a program capable of competing at the highest level. Their journey to the final represented not just sporting achievement but also the healing power of inclusion and the restoration of South Africa to the international community. The final between Australia and South Africa carried symbolic weight beyond the sporting contest. It represented reconciliation, the return of a nation to competition after decades of isolation, and the universal language of sport bringing people together. Australia won the match, claiming the title, but South Africa's runners-up finish was celebrated as a remarkable achievement that signaled their arrival as a genuine force in international netball. Trinidad and Tobago earned bronze in Christchurch, adding to their historic shared title from 1979. The Caribbean nation had maintained their program through the years since that remarkable tournament, and returning to the podium in 1999 demonstrated that their success had not been merely a one-time occurrence aided by home conditions. They were a legitimate contender, capable of competing with the world's best teams. The two tournaments of this era, London in 1995 and Christchurch in 1999, illustrated netball's increasingly global character. The broadcasting improvements meant that matches could be watched live across multiple time zones, expanding the sport's audience and raising its profile. Sponsors began to take greater interest, seeing opportunities to associate their brands with a sport that reached diverse demographics and maintained strong participation rates. The rules of netball continued to evolve during this period, with adjustments made to improve the flow of play and enhance the spectator experience. These changes were carefully considered, balancing the need to keep the sport modern and engaging with the desire to preserve the essential character that made netball distinctive. The technical committees that oversaw these rule developments drew on feedback from players, coaches, and officials, ensuring that changes reflected the needs and experiences of those most directly involved in the sport. The competitive balance, while still weighted toward Australia and New Zealand, showed signs of broadening. South Africa's emergence as a finalist demonstrated that other nations could develop programs capable of reaching the highest levels. Jamaica continued to improve, their athletic and creative style making them difficult opponents. England maintained consistency, regularly finishing in medal positions and building a domestic structure that produced skilled players. The atmosphere at these tournaments reflected netball's growing maturity as an international sport. The organization was professional, the media coverage sophisticated, and the fan engagement enthusiastic. The sport had evolved from its humble beginnings on outdoor courts in Eastbourne to become a global competition featuring the best athletes from multiple continents, competing in modern facilities before increasingly large audiences both in person and through broadcast media. The 2003 Netball World Cup marked a return to the Caribbean, with Kingston, Jamaica, hosting the tournament and providing a cultural and atmospheric experience quite different from recent European and Australasian editions. Jamaica had been building toward this moment for years, their netball program growing in strength and ambition, their players developing a reputation for athleticism and flair that made them exciting to watch and difficult to play against. The decision to hold the World Cup in Jamaica represented confidence in the Caribbean region's ability to deliver a successful tournament and recognition of Jamaica's significant contribution to international netball. The nation had claimed bronze in Singapore back in 1983, and in the years since had remained a consistent presence in the upper tier of world netball. Hosting the tournament at home provided an opportunity to showcase their progress and to inspire the next generation of Jamaican netball players. Kingston in the summer carries the characteristic warmth and vibrancy of the Caribbean. The tournament would unfold in conditions that Jamaican players trained in regularly but that visiting teams would need to adjust to quickly. The heat and humidity would be factors, as they had been in Trinidad in 1979, testing the fitness and preparation of teams from cooler climates. The local crowds would bring an energy and passion that reflected Jamaica's deep sporting culture. New Zealand arrived in Jamaica with particular determination. They had finished second in both 1995 and 1999, extending their pattern of near misses that had defined much of their World Cup history. The Silver Ferns, as they were known, had proven they could compete with Australia and had even beaten them when it mattered most in Glasgow in 1987. But that remained their only outright World Cup title, and the hunger to add a second championship drove their preparation for Jamaica. Australia came to Kingston as defending champions and favorites, their program still the gold standard in international netball. They had won in 1995 and 1999, and before that in 1991, establishing a pattern of dominance that had been interrupted only by New Zealand's victory in 1987 and the shared title in Trinidad in 1979. The Australian team traveled with confidence built on decades of success, but also with respect for opponents who were constantly improving. Jamaica, as hosts, carried the hopes of an entire nation. Their bronze medal from 1983 remained their best World Cup finish, but the years of development since then had produced a team capable of challenging for even higher honors. The Jamaican style was distinctive, combining natural athleticism with creativity and an attacking mindset that could trouble even the most organized defenses. Playing at home, before crowds that would lift them with every touch, the Jamaicans believed they could achieve something special. England arrived in Jamaica with their usual steady competence, a program that consistently produced good teams without quite managing to break through to championship level. Their most recent bronze medal had come in London in 1995, and they aspired to return to the podium in Kingston. The English approach was methodical and well-organized, relying on tactical discipline and technical execution rather than individual brilliance. The tournament format retained the structure introduced in Sydney in 1991, with preliminary rounds leading to semi-finals and a grand final. This system had proven its worth in creating dramatic climaxes to the tournament, and it remained the preferred method for determining the world champion. Teams understood that consistent performance in the preliminary rounds was important for securing favorable semi-final matchups, but that ultimately the championship would be decided in the knockout matches. The venues in Kingston reflected Jamaica's investment in sports infrastructure. While perhaps not matching the state-of-the-art facilities of Sydney or London, they provided solid playing conditions and space for enthusiastic crowds. The atmosphere around the tournament was festive and welcoming, with Jamaican culture permeating every aspect of the event from the opening ceremony to the music played during breaks and matches. As the tournament began, teams settled into their familiar routines of preparation, competition, and recovery. The preliminary rounds would test every squad's depth and resilience, requiring them to maintain performance across multiple matches in challenging conditions. The heat of Kingston meant that fitness and hydration became even more critical factors, and teams that had prepared thoroughly for these conditions would have an advantage over those that had not. The preliminary rounds in Kingston unfolded with expected results and surprising performances. New Zealand progressed with growing confidence, their play becoming sharper as the tournament advanced. Australia moved forward steadily, but observers noted they seemed less dominant than in recent tournaments, their margins narrower, their performances more workmanlike. Jamaica's progress through the preliminary rounds energized the home crowds. Every Jamaican goal was celebrated with explosive enthusiasm. Every defensive turnover met with roars. The atmosphere during Jamaica's matches was unlike anything else in the tournament. A wall of sound that seemed to lift the home team and make it difficult for opponents to communicate. The semi-finals brought the tournament to its crucial stage. New Zealand faced their semi-final with focused determination, playing with a precision that suggested they had peaked at exactly the right moment. Australia also advanced through their semi-final, setting up the possibility of another Trans-Tasman final. But there was something different about this tournament, a sense that the usual order might be subject to disruption. When New Zealand and Australia met in the final, the match carried the weight of their long rivalry and the particular circumstances of this tournament. New Zealand played with controlled aggression, their defense suffocating Australia's usual attacking flow, their own offense moving with fluidity and purpose. Australia fought hard, drawing on their deep reserves of experience and championship pedigree, but they could not quite find the rhythm that had carried them to so many previous victories. New Zealand won the final, claiming their second World Cup title and their first since that breakthrough victory in Glasgow 16 years earlier. The Silver Ferns had ended their pattern of near misses and proven that they could win when everything was on the line. The victory was celebrated with joy tempered by relief, the satisfaction of finally achieving what had eluded them for so long. Australia's defeat marked only their second World Cup final loss, the other being when they finished second to New Zealand in Glasgow. The Australian team accepted the result with grace, recognizing that New Zealand had been the better team on the day. The defeat would fuel their preparation for future tournaments, adding motivation to an already driven program. The bronze medal match provided Jamaica with an opportunity to claim a podium finish at home, and they seized it with performances that thrilled their supporters. Winning bronze in front of their own fans represented a career highlight for many of the Jamaican players, a moment of achievement that would be remembered and celebrated for years. The crowd's reaction to the bronze medal was ecstatic, treating it with the joy that others might reserve for gold. The success of the Kingston tournament exceeded expectations in many ways. The organization had been solid, the atmosphere electric, and the competition compelling. Jamaica had demonstrated that Caribbean nations could successfully host major international sporting events, creating experiences that combined excellent sport with distinctive local culture. The interest in netball surged across the Caribbean following the tournament. Young Jamaicans who had watched their national team compete and medal at home were inspired to take up the sport. Participation rates increased, club memberships grew, and the infrastructure for developing young players expanded. The 2003 World Cup created a legacy that extended far beyond the results recorded in the tournament's final standings. New Zealand's victory in Jamaica reinforced the competitive balance at the top of international netball. Australia remained a powerhouse, but they were no longer untouchable. New Zealand had proven they could win championships, and their victory in Kingston suggested that future tournaments would be genuinely open competitions rather than coronations of predetermined favorites. The tournament also highlighted the growing depth of international netball. While Australia and New Zealand remained at the top, the gap to the next tier of nations was narrowing. Jamaica's bronze medal at home, South Africa's continued progress, and England's steady consistency all pointed toward a future where more nations could realistically compete for medals. The broadcasting of the Kingston tournament reached new audiences across the Caribbean and beyond. The distinctive Jamaican atmosphere translated well to television, the energy of the crowds enhancing the viewing experience. Commentators noted the growing sophistication of play, the tactical complexity that had evolved over successive tournaments, and the athletic excellence displayed by all competing nations. As teams departed Jamaica, the netball world reflected on a tournament that had provided drama, outstanding competition, and memorable moments. New Zealand had their second title, Australia had experienced rare defeat, and Jamaica had created a tournament atmosphere that would be remembered as one of the most vibrant and engaging in World Cup history. 4 years after their defeat in Jamaica, Australia arrived at the 2007 Netball World Cup in Auckland, New Zealand, with something to prove. The tournament, held from the 7th to the 16th of July, would unfold in the heart of enemy territory, where New Zealand crowds would provide passionate support for their defending champions and create a challenging atmosphere for visiting teams, particularly their trans-Tasman rivals. Auckland had hosted a World Cup before, in 1975, and the experience gained from that event showed in the organization and execution of the 2007 tournament. New Zealand's netball infrastructure had developed considerably over the intervening 32 years, and the country now possessed world-class facilities and expertise in hosting major international sporting events. The venues selected for the tournament combined modern amenities with excellent playing conditions, creating optimal environments for high-performance netball. The crowds that gathered in Auckland brought an intensity that reflected New Zealand's passion for netball and pride in their national team. The sport held a special place in New Zealand culture, with participation rates among the highest in the world and support for the Silver Ferns transcending the usual boundaries of sports fandom. When New Zealand played, the entire nation seemed to pause and watch, and when they competed against Australia, the emotional investment became even more intense. Australia came to Auckland with a carefully constructed plan for reclaiming the World Cup. Their defeat in Jamaica had been analyzed thoroughly, lessons extracted, and adjustments made to their preparation and approach. The Australian team that arrived in Auckland was technically excellent, tactically sophisticated, and mentally prepared for the pressure of competing in hostile territory. They understood that winning in New Zealand would require them to be at their absolute best. New Zealand, as defending champions and hosts, carried the weight of dual expectations. They had proven in Jamaica that they could win World Cups, and now they needed to demonstrate that it had not been a one-time achievement. The pressure of defending a title at home was considerable, the kind that could either inspire great performances or create paralyzing anxiety. The New Zealand team prepared carefully, working to channel the support of home crowds into positive energy rather than crushing pressure. England arrived in Auckland with bronze medal ambitions, continuing their pattern of solid performances that regularly placed them in contention for podiums without quite threatening for titles. The English program remained stable and well-organized, consistently producing good teams through systematic development pathways. Their presence at every World Cup since the beginning in 1963 spoke to an enduring commitment to international netball. The preliminary rounds unfolded with both favorites navigating their way through their schedules successfully. Australia looked sharp and focused, their play characterized by efficiency and precision. New Zealand also progressed well, though observers noted they seemed to be carrying the tension of hosting and defending simultaneously. The smaller matches, those not involving the major powers, provided their own narratives and moments of significance for the teams and nations involved. As the tournament progressed toward the knockout rounds, tactical innovations became increasingly apparent. Coaches were implementing more sophisticated defensive schemes, utilizing zone concepts that differed from traditional player-on-player marking. The attacking play had evolved too, with teams showing greater patience in building scoring opportunities and more creativity in finding ways through organized defenses. The sport was continuing to develop, each tournament pushing the boundaries of what was tactically possible. Australia and New Zealand both reached the final, setting up another trans-Tasman showdown with the world title at stake. The match would be played before a capacity crowd in Auckland, with New Zealand supporters vastly outnumbering Australian fans. The atmosphere promised to be extraordinary, potentially the most intense environment a World Cup final had ever been contested in. The final itself lived up to its billing in terms of competitiveness and intensity. Both teams played excellent netball, showcasing the skills and tactical understanding that had made them the world's two best teams. Australia, however, managed the pressure of the hostile environment slightly better, their experience in big matches showing when it mattered most. They won the final, reclaiming the World Cup title and demonstrating that their defeat in Jamaica had been a temporary setback rather than the beginning of a sustained period of New Zealand dominance. England secured bronze, continuing their consistent presence on World Cup podiums. Their performance confirmed their status as a solid third-tier power, capable of competing with anyone on their day but not quite able to match Australia and New Zealand when those teams brought their best form. The victory in Auckland represented Australia's 9th World Cup title, extending their overall dominance of the competition's history while also showing their resilience in responding to defeat. The Australian program had proven once again its ability to learn, adapt, and return stronger when challenged. New Zealand's defeat at home was disappointing, but they had proven in Jamaica that they could win championships, and the rivalry between these nations remained as compelling as ever. The 2011 Netball World Cup returned to Singapore, the Asian nation that had successfully hosted the tournament in 1983. This time, however, the event would be substantially larger, as the decision had been made to expand the field from 12 teams to 16. This expansion represented a significant statement about netball's growing global reach and the increasing number of nations capable of competing at the international level. The decision to expand to 16 teams brought both opportunities and challenges. More nations would have the chance to participate in the sport's premier event, providing valuable competitive experience and raising the profile of netball in countries where it was still developing. However, the larger field also created logistical complexities, requiring more venues, longer schedules, and more sophisticated organization to ensure the tournament ran smoothly. Singapore approached these challenges with characteristic efficiency and attention to detail. The city-state had developed considerably since hosting in 1983, its sports infrastructure now among the most modern in Asia. The venues selected for the tournament provided excellent facilities, with climate control ensuring comfortable conditions despite the tropical heat outside. The organization benefited from Singapore's experience in hosting major international events and its reputation for precision and reliability. The expansion to 16 teams meant that the preliminary phase would need restructuring. Teams were divided into pools, with round-robin play within each pool determining which teams would advance to the knockout rounds. This format added complexity but also created more meaningful matches throughout the preliminary phase, as teams fought not just for overall position but for qualification from their pools. Australia arrived in Singapore as defending champions, having reclaimed the title in Auckland in 2007. Their program remained the standard-bearer for international netball, their combination of athletic excellence, tactical sophistication, and championship experience making them favorites for any tournament they entered. The Australian team traveled to Singapore with confidence but also awareness that complacency could be punished by increasingly competitive opponents. New Zealand came to Singapore determined to perform better than they had in the disappointing home tournament of 2007. The Silver Ferns had the talent and experience to challenge for the title, and the neutral venue of Singapore eliminated the potential complications of either home advantage or hostile crowds. They could focus purely on their netball, on executing their game plan and bringing their best form when it mattered most. South Africa's presence in the expanded field reflected their continued development as a netball nation. Since returning to international competition after the apartheid boycott, they had steadily built a program capable of competing with the world's best. Their reach to the final in 1999 had proven they belonged at the top table, and they came to Singapore with ambitions of reaching the podium again. The additional 4 teams in the expanded field came from diverse geographic regions, reflecting netball's spreading reach. Each brought their own style and approach, contributing to the tournament's variety and showcasing how different cultures and sporting traditions could shape the way netball was played. The presence of these developing nations provided them with invaluable experience and demonstrated the inclusive character of international netball. The pool phase of the tournament unfolded over several days, with matches taking place across multiple venues simultaneously. The expanded field created a festival atmosphere, with netball happening everywhere and spectators moving between courts to catch different matches. For the players and teams from smaller nations, simply being part of this event represented achievement, an opportunity to test themselves against better resourced and more experienced opponents. Australia progressed through their pool undefeated, demonstrating the kind of dominance that had characterized their best World Cup performances. Their winning margins were substantial in most matches, their combination play and shooting accuracy overwhelming opponents who struggled to match their intensity and precision. The Australian team was clearly operating at a very high level, building momentum as the knockout rounds approached. New Zealand also advanced from their pool successfully, though some of their matches were closer than they might have preferred. The Silver Ferns seemed to be finding their rhythm gradually, improving with each game as they adjusted to the tournament conditions and refined their combinations. By the time the knockout rounds began, New Zealand looked like a team capable of challenging Australia for the title. The knockout rounds of the 2011 World Cup brought the expanded tournament into sharper focus, as the field narrowed and the intensity increased. The 16 teams had been reduced through the pool phase, and now only those who had qualified would continue their championship pursuit. The stakes were clear, the pressure mounting, and the quality of netball rising to match the occasion. Australia's path through the knockout rounds was marked by comprehensive victories. They won their quarter-final convincingly, then dominated their semi-final, reaching the final without appearing seriously challenged. The Australian team was clicking on all cylinders, their attack flowing with creativity and precision, their defense creating turnovers that translated into scoring opportunities. They looked like a team operating at peak performance, confident and focused. New Zealand navigated their own knockout path successfully, though their journey required more effort than Australia's had. The Silver Ferns faced determined opponents who pushed them hard, forcing them to dig deep and find ways to win when matches became tight. These challenging encounters perhaps served New Zealand well, keeping them sharp and battle-tested as they approached the final. South Africa's bronze medal finish represented a significant achievement for their program. The Proteas had established themselves as a consistent force in international netball, regularly competing for podium positions and demonstrating that they belonged among the elite nations. Their presence in the medal matches validated the investments South African netball had made in development and high-performance programs. The final between Australia and New Zealand carried the familiar weight of the Trans-Tasman rivalry, now in its 15th World Cup iteration spanning nearly 50 years. These nations had contested so many significant matches, had traded titles and near misses, had pushed each other to constantly improve and innovate. The familiarity between them did not diminish the intensity. If anything, it heightened it. Australia won the final, claiming their 10th World Cup title and maintaining their unbeaten record throughout the entire tournament. It was a dominant performance that recalled their best periods of the past, when they had seemed almost untouchable. The victory margin was comfortable, reflecting Australia's superior form throughout the championship and their ability to raise their level even higher when the stakes were greatest. New Zealand's silver medal extended their pattern of strong performances without quite achieving championship success. They had now won 2 World Cups, in 1987 and 2003, but had finished second on numerous other occasions. The consistency of reaching finals was admirable, but the inability to convert more of those opportunities into titles remained a source of frustration for New Zealand netball. The expansion to 16 teams was deemed a success by organizers and participants alike. The additional nations had added variety and depth to the tournament. The extended schedule had created more opportunities for spectators and broadcasters, and the overall quality of competition had remained high despite the larger field. The format would be retained for future tournaments, now established as the preferred structure for the World Cup. Singapore's hosting demonstrated that Asian nations could successfully organize major netball events. The facilities were excellent, the organization smooth, and the local interest genuine if not overwhelming. The tournament helped raise netball's profile in Asia, a region where the sport was still developing but showed potential for significant growth. The 2011 World Cup also showcased the continuing evolution of netball tactics and playing styles. The influence of professional leagues, particularly in Australia and New Zealand, was evident in the sophistication of play. Teams were employing more complex defensive schemes, using analytics to inform their strategies, and developing specialized roles for players in ways that had not been common in earlier eras. The technical quality of the broadcasting and media coverage reached new heights in Singapore. High-definition cameras captured the action in unprecedented detail. Analytical graphics helped explain tactical patterns, and expert commentary provided insight into the nuances of elite netball. These improvements made the sport more accessible to casual viewers while also enriching the experience for knowledgeable fans. Australia's dominance in Singapore, winning every match and claiming the title convincingly, served notice that they remained the standard against which all other nations measured themselves. New Zealand had shown they could occasionally beat Australia and win World Cups, but Australia's consistency and depth gave them an edge that was difficult to overcome across the span of an entire tournament. As teams departed Singapore and began the 4-year cycle of preparation for the next World Cup, the netball world reflected on a successful tournament that had validated the expansion to 16 teams while also confirming that Australia and New Zealand remained the sport's dominant powers. The gap to other nations was narrowing, but it still existed, and closing it completely would require sustained effort and investment from those pursuing the top two. The 2015 tournament marked a significant milestone in the event's history, as it was officially renamed the Netball World Cup, dropping the previous informal designation and embracing a title that aligned the competition with other major world championships in international sport. The tournament returned to Sydney, Australia, the city that had hosted the groundbreaking 1991 championship that introduced the finals format. From the 7th to the 16th of August, Sydney would once again welcome the world's best netball nations. The official renaming to Netball World Cup reflected the competition's maturity and status. For decades, the event had been known simply as the World Tournament or World Championships, but the adoption of the World Cup designation placed it alongside football's FIFA World Cup and rugby's Rugby World Cup in the pantheon of global sporting competitions. The change was more than cosmetic. It represented a statement of ambition about netball's place in the international sporting landscape. Sydney had evolved considerably since hosting in 1991. The Olympic Games of 2000 had left a legacy of world-class sporting infrastructure, and the netball tournament would benefit from facilities that matched any in the world. The main venue offered excellent sightlines, state-of-the-art technology, and capacity for large crowds. The surrounding city provided a vibrant backdrop, its diverse population and strong sporting culture creating an atmosphere conducive to a major international event. The tournament maintained the 16-team format that had been successfully introduced in Singapore in 2011. This field size had proven optimal, large enough to be genuinely inclusive while small enough to maintain high competitive standards. The pool format led into knockout rounds, a structure that balanced the need to give teams multiple matches with the desire to create dramatic knockout encounters that would determine the ultimate champion. Australia approached this home World Cup with particular motivation. They had won in Singapore in 2011, maintaining their position at the top of international netball, but they understood that a victory on home soil carried special significance. The Diamonds, as the Australian team was known, had prepared meticulously, using their familiarity with conditions and the advantage of not having to travel as tools to help them peak at exactly the right time. New Zealand arrived in Sydney as the eternal challengers, the team that could beat Australia but needed everything to align perfectly to do so. The Silver Ferns had finished second in Singapore and would accept nothing less than a genuine challenge for the title in Sydney. The rivalry between these nations had only intensified over the years, each tournament adding new chapters to a story that had captivated netball fans across both countries for decades. England came to Sydney with realistic hopes of challenging for a medal. The Roses, as they were called, had been investing heavily in their netball program, and the development of a professional league in England was beginning to bear fruit. The quality of English netball was rising, and they believed that with the right performances and perhaps some fortune, they could achieve their best World Cup results since the early years of the competition. Jamaica represented the Caribbean's continued strong presence in international netball. The Sunshine Girls, as the Jamaican team was known, brought their distinctive blend of athleticism and flair to every tournament. They had medaled in the past and aspired to do so again, knowing that their style could trouble any opponent on the right day. The Jamaican players competed with joy and creativity that made them fan favorites wherever they played. The tournament coincided with celebrations of over 50 years of World Cup competition. The journey from those outdoor tarmac courts in Eastbourne in 1963 to the modern facilities of Sydney in 2015 represented extraordinary growth and development. The sport had evolved technically, tactically, and professionally, while maintaining the core values and distinctive character that made netball special. The global television viewership for the 2015 Netball World Cup reached record levels, with broadcasts reaching over 100 countries. The production quality was exceptional, utilizing technology that allowed viewers to appreciate the speed, skill, and tactical complexity of elite netball. Slow-motion replays revealed the precision of passes, the timing of intercepts, and the athletic excellence required to compete at this level. Commentary teams provided expert analysis that educated viewers and deepened their appreciation of what they were watching. The atmosphere in Sydney built steadily as the tournament progressed through its pool phase. Australian crowds turned out in strong numbers to support their team, creating a sea of green and gold in the stands. The energy they brought to matches provided a genuine home advantage, though the Australian team was careful not to let the pressure of expectation become overwhelming. The knockout rounds of the 2015 Netball World Cup in Sydney delivered the kind of drama and intensity that the renamed championship deserved. The 16 teams had been whittled down through the pool phase, and now the tournament entered its decisive stage. Every match carried the weight of finality, every quarter potentially the last for teams whose World Cup dreams could end with a single defeat. Australia progressed through their quarter-final with the kind of controlled performance that reflected their experience and quality. They managed the game expertly, never allowing their opponents to build dangerous momentum, always finding answers when challenged. The semi-final presented a stiffer test, but Australia rose to it, their depth and home advantage combining to secure their place in the final. New Zealand navigated their own path to the final, demonstrating the resilience and skill that had made them perpetual contenders. The Silver Ferns faced pressure in their knockout matches but responded with composure, their big match experience showing when it mattered most. The prospect of another Australia versus New Zealand final generated enormous anticipation, the Trans-Tasman rivalry once again providing the ultimate showdown for the world title. England secured bronze, their best World Cup result in 40 years since finishing third in Auckland in 1975. The achievement represented validation of the investment English netball had made in developing their program. The Roses had competed with distinction throughout the tournament, proving that the gap between the top two nations and the next tier was narrowing. The bronze medal was celebrated in England as a significant milestone and a platform for future ambitions. The final between Australia and New Zealand was played before a capacity crowd in Sydney. The atmosphere electric with anticipation and partisan support for the home team. These nations had contested so many significant matches over the decades, but finals always carried special weight. This was for the World Championship, for bragging rights across the Tasman Sea, for the pride that comes with being definitively crowned the best. Australia won the final, claiming their 11th World Cup title in front of their home supporters. The victory was comprehensive, reflecting Australia's superior form throughout the tournament and their ability to perform at their best when the stakes were highest. The crowd celebration was joyous and prolonged, the players taking a lap of honor that acknowledged both the support they had received and the significance of their achievement. New Zealand's silver medal marked their 6th runner-up finish across the tournament's history. The pattern of coming so close without quite achieving championship success had become a defining characteristic of New Zealand's World Cup story. They had won in 1987 and 2003, proving they could reach the summit, but Australia's consistency in winning titles, 11 now compared to New Zealand's 2, illustrated the dominance the Diamonds had exercised over the competition's history. The tournament's celebration of over 50 years of World Cup competition provided context for the 2015 championship. Organizers had created exhibits showcasing the history of the event, from the outdoor courts of Eastbourne to the modern facilities of Sydney. Veteran players from previous tournaments were honored, their contributions to building the competition recognized and appreciated. The sense of history and tradition enriched the entire event. The global reach of the Netball World Cup had expanded dramatically since 1963. The 16 teams competing in Sydney represented genuine geographic diversity, with nations from Oceania, Africa, Europe, the Caribbean, and Asia all present. While competitive balance still favored certain nations, the expansion of participation demonstrated netball's growing global footprint and the sport's ability to engage diverse cultures and communities. The professionalization of netball, particularly in Australia and New Zealand, had raised standards across the sport. The establishment of professional leagues meant that top players could train full-time, focus entirely on their athletic development, and bring unprecedented levels of skill and fitness to international competition. This professionalization was gradually spreading to other nations, creating the conditions for competitive balance to continue improving. The success of the Sydney tournament reinforced Australia's reputation as an excellent host of major sporting events. The organization was flawless, the venues outstanding, and the atmosphere consistently engaging. The tournament demonstrated that netball could deliver a world-class sporting spectacle that attracted strong attendance, generated significant media coverage, and created memorable moments that would be celebrated for years. As the 2015 Netball World Cup concluded, the sport could reflect with satisfaction on its journey from modest beginnings to global championship. The official adoption of the World Cup designation represented confidence in netball's status and ambitions. Australia's 11th title confirmed their historical dominance, while New Zealand's continued competitiveness ensured the rivalry that drove much of the sport's development remained vibrant. The future of the Netball World Cup looked bright, with growing participation, improving competitive depth, and increasing global recognition, all pointing toward continued growth and success. The 2019 Netball World Cup brought the tournament back to England for the first time since London in 1995. Liverpool, a city famous for its sporting passion and cultural vibrancy, welcomed 16 nations from the 12th to the 21st of July. The decision to host in Liverpool rather than London represented a desire to spread major sporting events beyond the capital, bringing the World Cup to a different part of England and engaging new audiences. Liverpool's sporting culture, forged primarily through football but extending across many sports, created an atmosphere of genuine enthusiasm for the netball tournament. The M&S Bank Arena provided an excellent venue, its capacity and facilities well suited to hosting a world championship. The city embraced the event, with Liverpool's characteristic warmth and humor evident in the welcome extended to visiting teams and supporters. England approached this home World Cup with their highest expectations in decades. The Roses had claimed bronze in Sydney in 2015, their best result in 40 years, and the program had continued to develop in the intervening period. The establishment of the Netball Super League as a professional domestic competition had raised standards, attracted international players to England, and created a pathway for English athletes to develop while competing against world-class opponents weekly. The prospect of England hosting generated significant media attention and public interest. Netball was experiencing a surge in popularity across England, with participation rates rising and the sport shedding its historical image as primarily a school-based activity. The World Cup provided an opportunity to showcase the elite level of the sport to audiences who might not have previously engaged with netball, potentially converting casual interest into sustained support. Australia arrived in Liverpool as defending champions and holders of 11 World Cup titles. The Diamonds remained the benchmark in international netball, their program's depth and quality continuing to set standards others aspired to match. They understood that competing in England, before crowds that would loudly support the home team and other nations against Australia, would test their mental strength alongside their netball skills. New Zealand came to Liverpool determined to break their pattern of runner-up finishes. The Silver Ferns had finished second in both Singapore in 2011 and Sydney in 2015, extending their history of near misses. They possessed the talent and experience to win, but translating that potential into actual championship success in the pressure of a World Cup had proven elusive. The neutral venue of Liverpool perhaps offered an advantage, removing the complications of either home pressure or hostile crowds. Jamaica's presence brought Caribbean flair and athleticism to the tournament. The Sunshine Girls had been investing in their program, with players increasingly competing in professional leagues overseas and bringing that experience back to the national team. Jamaica aspired to return to the podium, their last medal being the bronze they had won at home in Kingston in 2003. The 16 years since that achievement had seen continued development, and they believed they were ready to challenge the traditional powers. South Africa represented African netball with pride and ambition. The Proteas had been consistent performers since returning to international competition, regularly finishing in the top positions and occasionally threatening to break through to the very highest level. Their program had depth, their players competed professionally in various leagues, and they came to Liverpool believing they could achieve something special. The tournament format retained the structure that had worked successfully in previous editions, with pool play leading into knockout rounds. The 16 teams were divided into groups, with round-robin matches determining which teams would advance to the quarterfinals. This format balanced the need to give teams multiple matches with the desire to create high-stakes knockout encounters that would determine the champion. The atmosphere in Liverpool during the tournament was distinctive and memorable. English crowds brought passionate support for their team, creating a wall of red and white in the stands during England matches. The Roses games became events, with singing and chanting that rivaled football matches in intensity if not quite volume. For many players and officials, the Liverpool atmosphere represented something new in their World Cup experience, an energy that was both exhilarating and slightly overwhelming. The pool phase unfolded over several days, teams finding their rhythm and adjusting to tournament conditions. England performed well in their group, building confidence with each victory and generating momentum that fed the growing excitement among their supporters. Australia also progressed smoothly, as expected, while New Zealand navigated their pool successfully despite some matches being closer than anticipated. The knockout rounds of the 2019 Netball World Cup brought the tournament to its crucial phase, where months and years of preparation would be tested in matches that offered no second chances. The quarterfinals produced compelling netball, with several matches decided by narrow margins that reflected the improving competitive balance across international netball. Teams that had previously been considered outsiders were now capable of genuinely threatening the traditional powers. England's progress through the knockout rounds captivated their home supporters. The Roses played with confidence and precision, their combination work flowing smoothly, their defensive pressure creating turnovers that translated into scoring opportunities. The Liverpool crowd lifted them in crucial moments, the noise reaching levels that made communication difficult for opponents and provided tangible advantage to the home team. England reached the semi-finals, guaranteeing themselves at least a chance at a medal. Australia and New Zealand also advanced through the knockout rounds, their superior experience and quality showing in pressure situations. The prospect of these two nations meeting in the final was building once again, the Trans-Tasman rivalry seemingly destined to provide the ultimate showdown regardless of tournament location or circumstances. Both teams were playing excellent netball, their form suggesting the final, if it came, would be fiercely contested. The semi-finals delivered drama and heartbreak in equal measure. Australia faced England in one semi-final, a match that carried enormous emotional weight. The Liverpool crowd created an atmosphere unlike anything many of the Australian players had experienced, the noise constant and overwhelming. England played with freedom and courage, pushing Australia to their limits, but the Diamonds' experience in big matches proved decisive. Australia won narrowly, advancing to the final but acknowledging that England had brought them closer to defeat than they had anticipated. The other semi-final saw New Zealand advance to the final, setting up the anticipated Australia versus New Zealand showdown for the world title. England's defeat was devastating for the home supporters, but the Roses had achieved their best World Cup result by reaching the semi-finals, and they still had the bronze medal match to contest. Jamaica would be their opponents, another team that had exceeded expectations and performed with distinction throughout the tournament. England's bronze medal, won before their home supporters, was celebrated with genuine joy despite the disappointment of the semi-final loss. The Roses had matched their best-ever World Cup result, equaling the third-place finishes from the tournaments of the 1960s and 1970s, and they had done so by playing attractive, competitive netball that had captured the imagination of the Liverpool crowds and television audiences across England. The final between Australia and New Zealand was anticipated as a classic encounter between the sport's two greatest rivals. Both teams brought championship-winning pedigree, both had navigated difficult paths through the tournament, and both understood the significance of claiming a World Cup title. The match would be remembered as one of the greatest finals in the competition's history, not for its quality alone but for the extraordinary drama of its conclusion. From the opening whistle, the final was intensely competitive. Neither team could establish sustained dominance, the lead changing hands repeatedly across the four quarters. The defensive work from both sides was exceptional, creating turnovers and denying easy scoring opportunities. The shooting, when chances arose, showed remarkable composure given the pressure of the occasion. The crowd watched in mounting tension, understanding they were witnessing something special. As the match entered its final minutes, the scores remained desperately close. Every possession carried enormous weight, every goal celebrated or mourned depending on which team had scored it. The coaching decisions in those final moments would be analyzed for years afterward, tactical choices made in the heat of competition with a world title hanging in the balance. When the final whistle sounded, New Zealand had won by a single goal, 52-51. It was the closest World Cup final in history, a margin that could scarcely be narrower while still producing a decisive result. The New Zealand players erupted in celebration, the enormity of what they had achieved washing over them. Australia, devastated by the defeat, stood in stunned silence, absorbing the reality that they had come within a single goal of retaining their title. The one-goal margin sparked endless discussion and analysis. Observers replayed crucial moments, identifying the shots that had missed, the turnovers that had occurred, the tactical decisions that might have changed the outcome. For New Zealand, these debates were irrelevant. They had won, claiming their third World Cup title and proving once again that they could defeat Australia when everything was on the line. Australia's silver medal marked only their third final defeat in the tournament's 56-year history. The Diamonds had lost to New Zealand in Glasgow in 1987 and again in Jamaica in 2003, and now Liverpool joined that shortlist. The defeat stung, but it also demonstrated that the rivalry remained genuine, that neither nation could take victory for granted when they met in World Cup finals. The 2019 tournament in Liverpool would be remembered for its atmosphere, for England's strong performance on home soil, and above all for that extraordinary one-goal final that had provided the closest and most dramatic conclusion in Netball World Cup history. The 2023 Netball World Cup marked a historic milestone as the tournament came to Africa for the first time in its 60-year history. Cape Town, South Africa, welcomed 16 nations from the 28th of July through the 6th of August, providing a showcase for netball on a continent where the sport had been growing steadily but had never previously hosted the World Championship. The decision to bring the World Cup to Africa represented recognition of the continent's potential and a commitment to truly global development of the sport. Cape Town's selection as host city reflected South Africa's investment in sports infrastructure and their experience in hosting major international events. The memory of the 2010 FIFA World Cup remained fresh, and the organizational expertise developed through that experience would benefit the Netball World Cup. The city itself, with its dramatic natural beauty and multicultural character, provided a stunning backdrop for the tournament, creating images that would be broadcast globally and help promote both netball and South Africa. The venues selected for the tournament combined modern facilities with accessibility for local populations. The organizers were committed to ensuring that South African communities, particularly those where netball was popular but resources limited, could attend matches and experience world-class sport. Ticket pricing reflected this commitment, with affordable options making it possible for families and school groups to watch the world's best players compete. South Africa approached hosting with particular pride and determination. The Proteas had been competing in World Cups since returning to international sport after apartheid, and they had established themselves as consistent performers capable of challenging the traditional powers. Hosting at home provided an opportunity to demonstrate how far South African netball had progressed and to inspire the next generation of players across the continent. Australia arrived in Cape Town seeking to reclaim the title they had lost in Liverpool. The one-goal defeat to New Zealand in that 2019 final had been processed, analyzed, and used as motivation for the intervening years. The Diamonds had refined their approach, developed new players, and prepared meticulously for the African conditions. They understood that winning in Cape Town would require adaptability and resilience alongside their traditional strengths. New Zealand came to South Africa as defending champions, having won that extraordinary one-goal final in Liverpool. The Silver Ferns carried the confidence that comes from championship success, but they also understood that defending a World Cup title was notoriously difficult. The target on their backs was larger now, every opponent motivated to defeat the reigning champions, every match carrying the weight of expectation. England arrived with ambitions built on their semi-final appearance in Liverpool. The Roses had continued to develop, their professional league attracting talent from around the world and raising domestic standards. They believed they could challenge for medals and perhaps even threaten the Australia-New Zealand duopoly that had dominated World Cup history. The English program had depth and quality, and Cape Town represented an opportunity to achieve something special. Jamaica brought their distinctive style and Caribbean flair to Africa. The Sunshine Girls had been investing in their program, with players competing professionally in various leagues and bringing that experience to the national team. They aspired to medal for the first time since their bronze at home in Kingston 20 years earlier. The Jamaican approach, combining natural athleticism with creative play, made them dangerous opponents capable of troubling anyone. The tournament introduced advanced technology that had not been available in previous World Cups. Video assistant referee systems, adapted from other sports, were trialed to help officials make accurate decisions in crucial moments. The technology sparked debate about tradition versus innovation, but most agreed that getting decisions correct was paramount in a world championship where margins could be razor thin. The attendance figures from Cape Town exceeded expectations, with over 200,000 fans attending matches throughout the tournament. The enthusiasm of South African crowds, combined with supporters who had traveled from competing nations, created atmospheres that ranged from festive to intensely passionate. The diversity of the crowds reflected Cape Town's multicultural character and netball's ability to unite people across different backgrounds. The pool phase unfolded in the warm Cape Town winter, conditions that were mild and pleasant for playing netball. Teams adapted to the time zone differences and the particular characteristics of the venues. The South African crowds brought vocal support for the Proteas, creating a home advantage that would be tested as the tournament progressed through increasingly difficult matches. The knockout rounds of the 2023 Netball World Cup brought the tournament into its decisive phase, with the familiar format of quarterfinals, semifinals, and a grand final determining the ultimate champion. The tension increased with each round, the margin for error disappearing as teams fought for survival and advancement. The Cape Town crowds grew larger and more vocal, sensing they were witnessing historic moments in the first African World Cup. Australia progressed through their knockout matches with the kind of controlled excellence that had characterized their greatest World Cup campaigns. The Diamonds were playing with purpose and precision, their combination of experienced champions and emerging talent creating a balanced team that could adapt to different challenges. Their path to the final suggested they had peaked at exactly the right moment, their form building through the tournament. England reached the final for the first time in their World Cup history, a remarkable achievement that reflected years of investment and development. The Roses had defeated strong opponents in the knockout rounds, playing with confidence and cohesion that suggested they genuinely believed they could win the championship. The prospect of facing Australia in the final was daunting, but England approached it with the mentality that they had nothing to lose and everything to gain. New Zealand's campaign ended before the final, a disappointing result for the defending champions. The Silver Ferns had competed well but could not quite recapture the form that had carried them to victory in Liverpool. They claimed bronze, a result that was respectable but below their own expectations. The consolation was that they remained among the elite nations, consistently competitive even when not winning titles. The final between Australia and England carried significance beyond the immediate contest for the championship. England had never won a World Cup in 60 years of trying, while Australia sought their 12th title and redemption after the Liverpool defeat. The match would determine not just the 2023 champion but potentially signal a shift in the global balance of netball power. Australia won the final, claiming their 12th World Cup title and establishing a new margin of dominance in the tournament's history. The Diamonds' victory was comprehensive, their superior experience and championship pedigree showing in crucial moments. England fought hard and competed with distinction, but they could not quite bridge the gap to Australia's level when everything was on the line. England's silver medal, while disappointing after coming so close, represented their best-ever World Cup result. The Roses had broken through the barrier that had seen them finish third or fourth repeatedly, reaching a final and proving they belonged among the very best. The result validated their program's development and suggested that future tournaments might see England challenge more strongly for titles. The Cape Town tournament's success as Africa's first World Cup exceeded even optimistic expectations. The organization had been excellent, the crowds enthusiastic and knowledgeable, and the venues provided outstanding conditions for world-class netball. South Africa had demonstrated that African nations could successfully host major international sporting events, opening possibilities for future tournaments on the continent. The sold-out finals created an atmosphere that players and officials described as among the best they had experienced at a World Cup. The diversity of the crowd, the passion of the support, and the quality of the netball combined to produce a sporting occasion that would be remembered as a highlight in the tournament's history. The images of packed stadiums in Cape Town were broadcast globally, promoting both netball and South Africa to worldwide audiences. The trial of advanced technology, particularly the video assistant referee systems, was generally regarded as successful. While there were moments of debate about specific decisions, most participants agreed that the technology helped officials make accurate calls in crucial situations. The successful implementation suggested that future World Cups would continue to embrace technological advances that could improve the fairness and accuracy of competition. The 2023 World Cup marked 60 years since that first tournament on the outdoor tarmac courts of Eastbourne in 1963. The journey from those modest beginnings to the sophisticated, globally broadcast championship in Cape Town illustrated netball's remarkable growth. The sport had spread across continents, developed professional structures, and created a world championship that rivaled any international sport for competitive intensity and organizational excellence. Australia's 12th title extended their historical dominance while also demonstrating their ability to respond to setbacks. The defeat in Liverpool had been processed and used as motivation. The program had continued to develop and innovate, and the result was a return to the top of the world. New Zealand's bronze showed they remained competitive, while England's silver suggested the traditional duopoly might face stronger challenges in future tournaments. The success of the African tournament opened discussions about future World Cup hosting, with the possibility of rotating the championship across different continents to ensure global engagement and development. The tournament had proven that netball could thrive anywhere with proper organization, enthusiastic crowds, and committed participants. Cape Town had provided a fitting celebration of 60 years of World Cup netball, honoring the past while pointing toward an exciting future for the sport. The journey of the Netball World Cup from 1963 to 2023 represents one of the great stories in international sport. 60 years of competition, spanning continents and generations, has transformed a modest beginning on outdoor tarmac courts in Eastbourne into a global championship that attracts hundreds of thousands of spectators and reaches millions through broadcast media. The evolution reflects not just the growth of netball but the changing nature of international sport itself. Australia's dominance across this history is extraordinary and unprecedented. 12 World Cup titles from 17 tournaments represents a level of sustained excellence rarely seen in any sport. The Diamonds have set standards of preparation, performance, and professionalism that others aspire to match. Their ability to rebuild and renew while maintaining championship-level performance across decades demonstrates the depth and quality of Australian netball infrastructure. Even when defeated, as in Glasgow in 1987, Jamaica in 2003, and Liverpool in 2019, Australia has shown the resilience to learn, adapt, and return stronger. New Zealand's role as the eternal challenger has created the rivalry that has driven much of netball's development. The Silver Ferns have won 3 titles, in 1987, 2003, and 2019, proving they can reach the summit when form and circumstance align. Their numerous runner-up finishes, while frustrating for New Zealand supporters, demonstrate remarkable consistency and the difficulty of consistently beating Australia across an entire tournament. The Trans-Tasman rivalry has enriched netball, providing narrative tension and competitive fire that has elevated both nations. The expansion of competitive netball beyond Australia and New Zealand has been gradual but genuine. England's journey from the early tournaments through to their runner-up finish in Cape Town in 2023 shows sustained development. Jamaica's emergence as a medal contender, culminating in their bronze in Singapore in 1983 and again in Kingston in 2003, demonstrated Caribbean netball's quality. South Africa's return after apartheid and subsequent rise to finals and medal contention illustrated the impact of inclusion and investment. The historic 3-way tie in Trinidad in 1979 remains one of the tournament's most remarkable moments, a result so unexpected it seemed scripted for maximum drama. Trinidad and Tobago's shared title on home soil represented the pinnacle of Caribbean netball achievement and highlighted the impact that home advantage and passionate support can have on performance. The tie also prompted the eventual introduction of finals, fundamentally changing how World Cups would be decided. The introduction of semi-finals and a grand final in Sydney in 1991 transformed the tournament structure, creating the dramatic climax that a world championship deserves. The format change meant that championships would be decided by specific high-stakes matches rather than accumulated points, adding pressure and excitement that enhanced the spectator experience and raised the tournament's profile. Every final since has carried weight and significance that the round-robin system could not quite replicate. The geographic expansion of hosting has been significant. From the early concentration in Britain, Australia, and New Zealand, the World Cup has traveled to the Caribbean, Asia, and Africa. Each region has brought distinctive character to the tournament, different atmospheres and cultural contexts that have enriched the championship. Singapore's organizational excellence, Jamaica's passionate crowds, Cape Town's historic significance as Africa's first host, all contributed to the tapestry of World Cup history. The technological evolution has been remarkable. From outdoor courts to climate-controlled indoor arenas, from limited media coverage to global television broadcasts reaching hundreds of countries, from basic scoreboards to sophisticated video analysis and replay systems, the infrastructure supporting the World Cup has advanced dramatically. These improvements have made the sport more accessible to audiences and more fair in its officiating while maintaining the essential character that makes netball distinctive. The professionalization of netball, particularly in Australia, New Zealand, and England, has raised standards across the sport. Players can now train full-time, access world-class coaching and support services, and compete in professional leagues that prepare them for international competition. This professionalization has increased the quality of play while also creating pathways that encourage more athletes to commit to netball at elite levels. The competitive balance, while still weighted towards certain nations, has improved measurably. The gap between the traditional powers and emerging nations has narrowed, with more teams capable of causing upsets and competing for medals. The expansion to 16 teams has created opportunities for nations still developing their programs to gain valuable experience competing at the highest level. The future promises even greater competitive depth as investment in netball development spreads globally. The 60-year journey from Eastbourne to Cape Town tells a story of growth, evolution, and the enduring appeal of a sport that combines athleticism, strategy, and teamwork in unique ways. The Netball World Cup has become a fixture on the international sporting calendar, a championship that honors tradition while embracing innovation, that celebrates individual brilliance while emphasizing collective effort. As the tournament looks toward its future, it carries with it the legacy of 60 remarkable years. The rivalry between Australia and New Zealand in netball stands as one of the great sporting competitions. Separated by the Tasman Sea but connected through shared history and sporting passion, these two nations have contested each other with an intensity that transcends mere athletic competition. The rivalry has shaped both nations' approach to the sport, driven innovation and excellence, and provided countless memorable moments across 6 decades of World Cup history. The geographic proximity creates familiarity that breeds both respect and fierce competitiveness. Australian and New Zealand players often compete in domestic leagues, creating relationships that shift between friendship and rivalry depending on whether they are clubmates or international opponents. This familiarity means that both teams understand each other's tendencies, strengths, and weaknesses in extraordinary detail, making their World Cup encounters exercises in tactical chess alongside athletic execution. The cultural similarities between Australia and New Zealand add layers to the rivalry. Both nations value sporting excellence, both have strong traditions of women's sport, and both have invested heavily in netball development. The competition between them extends beyond the court to encompass coaching philosophies, training methodologies, talent identification systems, and sports science approaches. Each innovation in one country prompts examination and response from the other, creating a cycle of continuous improvement. The first encounter at a World Cup, in Eastbourne in 1963, set a pattern that would endure for decades. Australia won that match by a single goal, the narrowest of margins that accurately predicted how close these nations would remain across the tournament's history. New Zealand would finish second to Australia in 1963, 1967, 1971, and 1983, a pattern of near misses that became both badge of honor and source of frustration for New Zealand netball. The breakthrough came in Glasgow in 1987 when New Zealand defeated Australia in a crucial match and went on to claim their first outright World Cup title. The 45-43 victory represented more than just a single result. It was validation of New Zealand's approach, proof that they could beat Australia when it mattered most, and the beginning of a new era where neither nation could claim automatic superiority. The celebrations in New Zealand were euphoric. Years of chasing finally rewarded with championship success. Australia's response to that defeat demonstrated their championship character. They returned to win in Sydney in 1991 in the first ever World Cup final, edging New Zealand 53-51 in a match that was as close as the score suggests. The ability to respond to defeat, to learn and improve, and to reclaim the championship became a defining characteristic of Australian netball. The resilience they showed in 1991 would be repeated after losses in Jamaica in 2003 and Liverpool in 2019. New Zealand's second title came in Jamaica in 2003, another defeat of Australia in a World Cup final. The victory came on neutral ground, before Caribbean crowds rather than the partisan support of either home nation. This neutrality perhaps helped New Zealand, removing the complications of either overwhelming home pressure or hostile environments. The championship demonstrated that their 1987 victory had not been a one-time achievement but rather evidence of a program capable of sustained excellence. The rivalry intensified further with the one-goal final in Liverpool in 2019, perhaps the most dramatic encounter in the entire history of the competition. The 52-51 result in New Zealand's favor meant that 3 of the 4 World Cup finals between these nations had been decided by 2 goals or fewer. The margins were razor-thin, the competitiveness absolute, and the respect between the programs genuine even amid fierce rivalry. Australia's 12 World Cup titles compared to New Zealand's 3 tells one story about dominance and consistency. But the closer examination reveals that many of Australia's victories came with New Zealand finishing second, that the margins in their encounters have often been minimal, and that when they meet in finals, the outcome is never predetermined. New Zealand has proven they can beat Australia in the biggest matches, while Australia has demonstrated the ability to win more consistently across entire tournaments. The psychological dimensions of the rivalry add complexity to each encounter. Both teams carry the weight of history into their matches, memories of previous victories and defeats informing their preparation and mindset. Australian players understand they are expected to win, that anything less than victory against New Zealand is considered underachievement. New Zealand players carry the knowledge that they can beat Australia but must do so consistently to shift the historical balance. The coaching battles between the nations have been as fascinating as the playing competitions. Different philosophies, tactical approaches, and strategic innovations have been tested in the crucible of trans-Tasman competition. Successful strategies have been adopted and adapted by both nations, creating evolution in how netball is played and coached at the elite level. The intellectual competition between coaching staffs mirrors the physical competition between players. The impact of the rivalry extends beyond the two nations directly involved. Other countries have benefited from studying Australia-New Zealand matches, learning from the tactical sophistication and competitive intensity. The rivalry has pushed both nations to higher standards, and those elevated standards have in turn raised the level of international netball generally. What happens between Australia and New Zealand influences the entire sport. Looking across 60 years of World Cup competition, the Australia-New Zealand rivalry emerges as the central narrative thread. Their encounters have provided the tournament's most memorable moments. Their competition has driven much of netball's development, and their mutual pursuit of excellence has created a sporting rivalry that ranks among the finest in any sport. The rivalry endures because both nations remain committed to netball, continue to invest in development, and understand that their greatest challenges will always come from across the Tasman Sea.